So it gets to the third part in every series where I just decide to skip the copy-paste intro. I'm pretty sure you know the deal by now: common TF2 weapon misconceptions, common TF2 mechanic misconceptions, and all the jazz like that. This video is not going to contain as many misconceptions as some of the others, however I've deliberately left all the super complex ones for this video. So without further ado, I'd really like to just get into it, as these intros are getting longer and longer per video. Number 1. Healing ramp up continued. So I previously talked in the last video about healing ramp up and the fact that if anything does health regeneration, thanks to gunmetal it has to ramp up over time. However, a comment reminded me that this does not apply in Man vs Machine. In Man vs Machine, if anything does passive healing, you instantly get it immediately, no questions asked. This applies to the conch, as you probably guessed, but then can also apply to different things like the amputator and even the cozy camper. The reason why not many people know this, I'm going to assume, is because damage is king in MVM, and why would you choose the conch over the buff banner, or why would you choose the cozy camper over, the Durati? But regardless, it's a fun little factoid that I didn't even know, so kudos to whoever commented this. I can't find the original comment. And you know what, there's actually a lot of MVM ones we can talk about for this, so let's go on a little tangent here. Number 2. Most Man vs Machine upgrades are bugged. And this is by no means a comprehensive list, however we're going to be going over some of the most commonly upgraded ones, and therefore some of the most bugged ones. The obvious first one we're going to talk about is sentry firing speed. So the first tick of sentry firing speed works perfectly fine, as from what I've heard, but it's usually around the second or third tick that things start to go wrong. I've heard different things from different people, so please don't shoot the messenger, but it seems to be, on average, the second tick is where you should stop upgrading it, if at all. The Scattergun bullet penetration does not work either. It seems to be that the source engine cannot handle the amount of bullets, so instead of dealing your normal damage to every target hit, it spreads the damage evenly among them, and I really don't know why. Apart from that, heavy firing speed upgrades do not work on certain weapons, like for the Tommy Slug for example, the first tick does not work, and for most miniguns the second or third tick does not work. Burn time as well is incredibly buggy, and I've done some testing and I can't get it to work whatsoever. And the last one I'm going to mention is Rocket Specialist. It seems to be that the blast radius increase doesn't work after a couple ticks as well, and by now, another day, another dollar. There's an incredibly grumpy TF2 YouTuber called Weezy, who you probably heard of, and he did a video basically making a pretty good comprehensive list of some of these, so I highly recommend checking it out. The long and short of it is, if you don't want to get kicked while doing 2 cities tours, you should probably take a look at what upgrades work and what upgrades don't. Number 3, let's talk about damage ramp up. So, damage ramp up is a concept that the further away you are from the target, the less damage you will deal. Yet, at the same time, the closer you are to a target, the more damage you'll deal. This sounds like a basic concept, however, apparently it's a lot more complex than that. But the main one I wanted to talk about for this was the crossbow, in that it actually has the opposite. With the crossbow, the further away you are from your target, the more healing you'll do, likewise with the same as damage. So, if you want to be maximising your shots, heal your targets at close range and then crossbow them from afar. And continuing with our theme of continuing, let's talk about number 4, the crossbow bolts can be reflected. So what I'm mainly talking about here is the fact that normal syringes cannot be reflected by pyro, however crossbolts can. And a normal reflected crossbolt can actually heal your teammates, so if you were to reflect a crossbolt and reflect it into one of your teammates, it would heal them for the same amount. I understand why normal syringes can't be reflected, as they are a burst, and reflecting a burst of syringes would not only be incredibly difficult for the source engine, but would also be pretty difficult to balance in terms of mini crits. But at the same time, I still think they should be able to be reflected, purely for muscle memory. And let's just continue once again with number 5, what pyro can and can't reflect. So pyro can reflect basically everything. He can reflect everything from thrown Durati jars to crossbow bolts to rescue ranger bolts. Almost anything you can think of. However, there are a couple exceptions within these exceptions. Number 1 being pyro cannot change the team alliance of stickies, he can only just push them away. The reason for this is probably that pyro would have no way of manually detonating them, so pushing them away is the next best thing. Apart from that, reflected rescue ranger bolts cannot heal your allies' buildings, and I was really sad to find that out. I know that would have been a very niche thing, but that's honestly one of the most wanted changes I have for TF2 right now. I want pyros to be able to heal their allies' buildings. And lastly, if you were to reflect a Sandman ball, you could still achieve the moonshot with it, meaning that it would crit if flown a certain distance. Air Blast is a surprisingly complex mechanic, and such a heavily underutilized one as well. But it's honestly the best part about playing Pyro, and I absolutely love it, and I really like an Air Blast flamethrower. Number 6, Bleed. So how Bleed works is that it deals 4 damage every 0.5 seconds, and usually adds up to about 40 damage in total. Bleed can also be affected by mini crits, however it will only deal 5 damage per tick. And bleed also stacks, unlike afterburn. This is the main difference between the two. Multiple instances of bleed can stack upon each other, so if you were to hit your target with the Rap Assassin's Ball and then the Cleaver, they'll be taking 8 damage a tick. That's just a little mini comprehensive guide of how bleed works, as it's mostly only Scout that can properly utilise bleed, and it's a very underutilised mechanic. Doing the same thing we've been doing this entire video, let's talk about number 7, the Boston Basher and how that works. So the Boston Basher has the simple concept that if you hit the enemy, they bleed, if you miss, you bleed. Pretty simple, and I don't know why sweaty scouts love using this thing. However, because this game is as buggy as hell, there are always going to be exceptions. The main one being if you hit an allied teammate, you will not trigger the bleed on yourself. This also applies to inanimate objects as well, such as buildings and map elements. And the last one we're going to cover today, let's continue with our trend about talking with the Boston Basher melees, and let's talk about TF2 melee hit registration. So, have you ever been on the final point of the group keep and you're just dealing no damage with your melees? Well, there's a good reason for that. Because of how this game works, and I really don't know why, if you hit someone while in range of your teammate takes the hit priority. Meaning that if 2 teammates are trying to hit one enemy and they're both within range of each other, they will be dealing no damage. Who on earth let this mechanic slide, be it intentional or not, I have no clue, but he needs to be shot off the face of the planet. And there you go, that's all the facts for this one. However, we're also going to be covering very quickly all of the things I've got wrong over the past 2 episodes. As I have had so many comments from armchair redditors who think they're gods at the game and seem to love nitpicking everything I've ever said. So the first mistake I've made is that the Dragon's Fury projectile is actually the fastest in the game, not the Cleaver or the Sandman. And I had also mistakenly said that the shield damage caps out at 4, but turns out while the Eyelander caps out at 4 heads, the shield bash damage actually caps out at 5 heads. That's it. Those are all the mistakes I've made in the previous 2 videos, despite the thousands of comments we've had of armchair warriors thinking that I've made more. Yes, the Sydney Sleeper can headshot, regardless of the fact that it doesn't give you the extra points when you get a kill, it still counts as a headshot. A lot of people like to bring up the back hitboxes. I never said back hitboxes were 180, I just said they aren't what they seem. I am still getting comments of people saying the back burner can random crit. No, it cannot! And no, this channel is great, and I have not made loads of factual inaccuracies. It was 2 bloody things! Maybe I need to calm down. It seems to be that lots of people take pride in taking pot shots at whoever has the channel, so my only response to this is 1, I'm only human, I'm doing all this research by myself, I don't have a team like other people, and 2, let's see you do better. Let's see you make a channel in a day in which literally anyone who talks about anything TF2 related is apparently an Uncle Dane clone. I have been called an Uncle Dane clone by so many different people on so many different occasions. Well, I'm sorry I can actually at least be bothered to upload content once a week that I pour my heart and soul into instead of sitting on my huge pile of money like a dragon. Let's see you try to juggle a full-time YouTube channel along with a university course, a girlfriend, and the fact that you're being made homeless by the end of December to the point where you're going to have to go live with your grandparents until they cark it. I am so sorry for what just happened. I do want you to know that this is a jokey rant, I'm not like genuinely attacking anyone here. Yet at the same time, everything I just said is true. I am actually being made homeless by the end of December. I'm going to make a video talking about it in the future, but just for now, you know, I'm not actually mad at all of these comments. This is all for comedic effect. Yes, it irritates me, but you know, I'd never actually, you know, I'm not that mad. But long story short, my life is falling apart currently. So if I make like one mistake in a TF2 video, please just ignore it. I have no money to repay people with, and I really just wanted to do something for the community, which is why I announced the Creators Program. But, you know, guess what, Uncle Dane clone? Anyway, I'm actually going to end this now. Thank you very much, everyone. Let me know what you'd like to see next. I've currently got a sequel to top things TF2 players hate. I've got a sequel for that in the works, or some other stuff. I'll make a community poll, so go vote on there. Anyway, thank you very much, and I'll see you later down the sunny road. Cheers.